Money did not just lose value, it started dying faster than people could count it. Entire nations woke up with wages that could not buy bread by nightfall. The strangest part is that the final collapse often began before the public knew anything was wrong. France's 1796 mandate collapsed. In mid-August 1796, you walk into a Paris market and your money is losing 4.77% of its value every day. Prices double every 15.1 days. Revolutionary France has been inflating since May 1795, first with assignats, paper backed by confiscated church land. Confidence evaporates because land printed on a note does not buy bread when everyone doubts the note. So France reissues the same bankrupt promise with a new name on top, the Mandat Territorial. That is the currency now collapsing fastest at 304% per month. Your wages chase prices and arrive exhausted. Your savings become yesterday's paper. By November 1796, the exit is brutal. France declares your stack of mandats worth 1% of face value. The state calls it closure. You call it 99% gone. Peru's 1990 Fujishock Inti crash. After the last currency collapse, Peru made the exchange rate look like a final certificate, 1 nuevo sol for 1 million intis. Work backward and you find the crash waiting for Alberto Fujimori when he took office on July 28, 1990. Alan Garcia had spent the late 80s holding prices down by decree, while deficits, debt arrears, exchange controls, and central bank money fed shortages and a black market where the dollar price made the official rate fiction. Peru had already snapped once, with monthly inflation hitting 114% in September 1988. Then Fujishock arrived, controls came off, stabilization came in. You paid immediately. In August, inflation hit 397%. Prices doubled every 13.1 days. 1,000 intis became almost 5,000 in a month. The ledger closed at 1 nuevo sol for 1 million obsolete intis. North Korea's 2009 rice market yuan collapsed. In Hyesan, December 2009, the regime detonates its own money. A confiscatory currency reform wipes out old yuan balances, caps exchanges, and tells you the new yuan is order restored. The market answers faster than the state. In Pyongyang, Sinuiju, and Hyesan, official statistics are useless, so the autopsy runs through black market exchange rates and rice prices. By early March 2010, foreign exchange data shows monthly inflation at 496%. Prices double every 11.8 days. Rice screams first, peaking in mid-January at 348% a month. You do not lose purchasing power, you lose meals. By mid-January 2011, the lesson is settled. People trust rice, Chinese yuan, and United States dollars. The yuan is paper with a portrait and no command. Danzig's 1923 imported Papiermark hyperinflation. If state money can lose to rice, what happens when your city imports someone else's collapse by treaty and trade? In the free city of Danzig, today Gdansk, Poland, a League of Nations protected port sat inside Germany's monetary blast radius. From August 1922 to mid-October 1923, Danzig kept the German Papiermark in circulation instead of starting with a regular domestic currency, so the crisis arrived preloaded. The peak hit in September 1923, with monthly inflation at 2,440%, equal to 11.4% per day, and prices doubling every 6.52 days. Danzig escaped before Germany's own October peak by adopting the Danzig Gulden. Time reported 100 Heller to 1 Gulden and 180 million Gulden authorized. But the next collapse makes even a new currency look like a temporary receipt. Nationalist China's 1949 gold yuan collapsed. By April 1949 in Shanghai, prices double every 5.34 days. Your paycheck is not income, it is melting inventory. You spend it fast, swap it for rice, silver, foreign exchange, anything that will still mean something next week. The collapse began in October 1947 as the nationalist state printed through the Civil War and confidence in Fabi cracked. Worse still, Chiang Kai-shek tried to make paper money respectable by giving it a golden name. In August 1948, the government replaced 3 million Fabi with 1 gold yuan. The branding failed. Communist armies advanced, shops dodged nationalist notes, and wholesale prices hit 5,070% a month, or 14.1% a day. By mid-May 1949, the gold yuan was another receipt from a losing government. Greece's 1944 occupation drachma disaster. That one printed itself into oblivion. Greece did it faster. By October 1944, prices were rising 13,800% a month. You do not budget, you race the shopkeeper. Axis occupation began in April 1941, and the mechanism was direct. Axis forces seized agricultural output, livestock, and rail infrastructure, while occupation authorities forced Greek institutions, including the Bank of Greece, to finance occupation costs with printed drachmas. Supply collapsed and famine followed. Hyperinflation ran from May 1941 to December 1945, but the peak was the autopsy result. 17.9% inflation per day, with prices doubling every 4.27 days. You hold paper, sellers want gold. The Bank of Greece says the cost of living rose 2.3 billion times by that October. On November 5th, the last occupation note was 100 billion drachmas. 5 days later, one new drachma bought 50 billion old ones. That is not money. That is a receipt for occupation. Weimar Germany's 1923 Papiermark death spiral. One United States dollar cost 4.2 trillion marks by November 1923. Before World War I, it cost 4.2. That was the Papiermark's autopsy. Germany had cut the paper mark loose from gold, then war debts and reparations pressure kept bleeding the budget. In January 1923, French and Belgian troops occupied the Ruhr. Berlin told workers to resist, then paid them and covered deficits by printing more money. Every rescue became gasoline. From August 1922 to December 1923, 22 to December 1923, prices stopped climbing and started detonating. In October, they rose 29,500% in 1 month, or 20.9% per day. Prices doubled every 3.70 days. You collected wages at noon because by evening they bought less. Banknotes hit 100 trillion marks. Towns printed not geld on paper, cardboard, even silk. Then one Rentenmark replaced 1 trillion Papiermark. The Rentenmark held because Germany had nothing left to inflate. Republika Srpska's 1994 war dinar disappearance. Worse still, by January 1994, this collapse was moving so fast that a price tag could expire before the week did. Inside Bosnia and Herzegovina, Republika Srpska was running a war zone currency, the Republika Srpska dinar, issued by its national bank while the entity financed an economy under wartime pressure. Hanke and Krus date the hyperinflation from April 1992 to January 1994, when monthly inflation hit 297 million%. That meant 64.3% a day and prices doubling every 1.41 days. You did not just lose savings, you lost the ability to measure them. The paper trail almost vanished too, surviving through statistics announcements in Banja Luka's official gazette. On February 19, 1994, the dinar was withdrawn, but the larger fire next door was already burning hotter. Yugoslavia's 1994 500 billion dinar collapsed. Worse still, you are standing at a Belgrade street market with a brick of notes in your hand, and the seller is already recalculating before you finish counting. From April 1992 to January 1994, the Yugoslav dinar collapsed during breakup, sanctions, war spending, shortages, and a state budget fed by the printing press. By January 1994, inflation hit 313 million% per month. Prices rose 64.6% a day, doubling every 1.41 days, fast enough to turn yesterday's pay into a receipt for failure. The national bank answered with 10 billion, 50 billion, 100 billion, and in 1993, 500 billion dinar notes, while real trade fled into Deutschmark cash. Dragoslav Avramovich linked a new dinar to the Deutschmark on January 24, 1994, but one collapse still made even this look like accounting with a pulse. Zimbabwe's 2008 $100 trillion breakdown. Worse still, what happens when a trillion stops sounding large while you are standing in line? From March 2007 to mid-November 2008, Zimbabwe's dollar became the modern shorthand for money losing the argument with reality. By the peak, reconstructed estimates put inflation at 79.6 billion% per month, with prices rising 98% a day and doubling every 24.7 hours. The official price series had already stopped in July, so economists tracked the wreckage through old mutual shares traded in both Harare and London. Using the gap to infer the black market exchange rate, the state printed 10 trillion, 50 trillion, and $100 trillion notes, the last the IMF calls the largest denomination ever issued. By early 2009, people had moved on to foreign cash because the national currency had not just failed, it had become a receipt for the next collapse to beat. Hungary's 1946 100 million B pengő apocalypse. Worse still, Hungary took the same printing press cure and made it terminal. After World War II, the state owed $300 million in Soviet reparations, while Budapest was bombed out and tax revenue came in too slowly to matter. So the government paid with new pengő. From August 1945 to July 1946, you watched the worst hyperinflation ever measured. In July, monthly inflation hit 41.9 quadrillion %. Daily inflation ran at 207%. Prices doubled every 15 hours, so a morning wage was stale by dinner. Ordinary notes became mil pengő, then B pengő, then the 100 million B pengő note, nominally 100 quintillion pengő. On August 1st, 1946, the forint arrived. One forint bought 400 octillion pengő. That was not conversion, that was burial.